Hey everyone, it's Leibel again, and I'm back here with another installment of what I'm calling History and Heroes, where I examine my musical heroes, the musical heroes of others, give a little history about their lives, and then attempt to recreate one of their most famous solos with my guitar, which is the only instrument that I play. My first episode was about Charlie Christian, the forerunner of electric guitar. Around the same time, slightly earlier, another great guitarist emerged on the scene, and his name was Django Reinhardt. Django was born in Belgium, and he was a gypsy, or Romani, maybe the more politically correct way to refer to him now. And he grew up in caravans, playing music on the streets. Apparently, his main interests were music and stealing chickens. He was apparently very good at that. And would play for money on the streets and came from a musical family. Before Django became a professional musician, he was in a tragic caravan fire, he and his wife. And he was burned over 80% of his body. They both survived, but he almost lost a leg. And what he did lose was the use of 2 of his 4 fingers on his left hand. That's the hand where you fret the guitar. So Django had to retrain himself on guitar to play his leads with just 2 fingers. And he could use the last 2 when he would play chords. He could kind of place them on the fretboard to fill out a chord, but he could not play individual notes with them. In his early 20s, Django met up with Stéphane Grappelli, the great jazz violinist, and they shared a love of jazz, and they began to experiment playing music together. The jazz at the time all came from America. We're talking about Louis Armstrong, the first great improviser of jazz, and Coleman Hawkins. So very early in the life of jazz improvisation, these 2 in France decided to create their own jazz band. And it was unique because their main group was comprised of 3 guitars, a bass, and a violin. So behind Django's lead guitar playing were 2 other guitarists tromping on the chords in the background. And they began to make recordings, and he soon became the most famous musician in all of Europe. This group that they created together became known as the Quintet of the Hot Club of France. It was tremendously popular. The music made its way over to the US in recordings, and Django was soon a worldwide phenomenon. When World War II came, Django was in a very precarious position because the Nazis were persecuting the gypsies. The estimates are that 600,000 to 1.5 million gypsies lost their lives in the Greater Holocaust. The Germans didn't like jazz music much either. So one would think that Django would be a marked man, so to speak. He was captured one time, but the Nazi officer who took him in actually recognized him and allowed him to escape. After World War II, Django came to America. He played with Duke Ellington. He played with all the great jazz artists of the day. He was still highly sought after. And this continued up until his retirement in 1951 at the age of 41. But he continued to play at small clubs around, and in 1953, after making his final recordings, he had a brain hemorrhage and passed away at that young age. In terms of music, Django's style is instantly recognizable for his unique sound, his melodic inventions, his highly stylized solos, the elegance of his playing, and in this little clip you'll see his extraordinary speed as a guitar player, especially in light of the fact that he could only use 2 fingers to do what he did. Even with 4 fingers, his speed would be remarkable. The last thing I want to mention about Django Reinhardt is that his music is so unique that, unlike Charlie Christian, who inspired other guitarists to take his style and to allow it to evolve and to modernize, Django's entire style of gypsy jazz, as it's called, is a musical thing unto itself that really hasn't changed much from its original conception. So you don't find Charlie Christian concerts or Charlie Christian festivals taking place all over the world, but Django's music is really a genre of its own. I got this mailing, The New Jazz Age. It's a series of jazz concerts that's going to be taking place in my area over the next year. One of the evenings, the music is called the Django Festival All-Stars. And these are guitarists who are just dedicated to trying to play in the style of Django Reinhardt, and that's how powerful the music is. There's actually one guy who has duplicated Django solos using only his two fingers, probably to figure out how Django was able to do it. If I could do it, I would do it. I've chosen to duplicate a solo he took on a song called Swing 39. One of the reasons I chose it is that I love the solo. It's very bouncy, it's very happy. It's also playable for me. I was not born with the gift of tremendous two-hand coordination and the ability to play at very high speeds, but I thought this was one I could tackle. Also, unlike the Charlie Christian solo flight, which I played before, I learned from transcribed sheet music, this was a solo that I played by ear, by slowing down the recording and picking out the notes one at a time and putting it together that way. I hope you enjoy it. I'll see you again next time with another installment of History and Heroes.